Welcome back, friends. Tonight, we're embarking on a journey through one of gaming's most enchanting and expansive worlds. This is the complete story of Genshin Impact, a tale that spans 7 nations, countless heroes, and mysteries that reach beyond the stars themselves. So settle in, get comfortable, and let me guide you through the world of Teyvat, where elemental powers dance in the wind, ancient gods walk among mortals, and 2 siblings find themselves separated by forces beyond their comprehension. Picture a universe where worlds exist like islands in an endless ocean of possibility. 2 travelers, beings of immense power and curiosity, drift between these realms with the freedom of birds riding eternal winds. They are explorers, wanderers, seekers of truth and beauty across infinite realities. These siblings have witnessed the birth and death of stars, walked through civilizations that rose and fell like waves upon distant shores, and carried with them the accumulated wisdom of countless worlds. Their bond transcends the ordinary connections that bind mortals together. They are 2 halves of a perfect whole, complementing each other in ways that make their combined presence something greater than the sum of their individual selves. Where one finds wonder, the other discovers meaning. Where one sees patterns, the other perceives the spaces between. They have never known separation, never experienced the hollow ache of solitude, never questioned whether their next adventure would be shared. The world of Teyvat calls to them like a song half remembered from dreams. 7 nations spread across a continent, each one blessed by an Archon, divine beings who govern the elemental forces that shape reality itself. Anemo flows through the highlands of Mondstadt, where freedom rings like cathedral bells across rolling green fields. Geo anchors the commercial prosperity of Liyue, where contracts bind gods and mortals alike in webs of mutual obligation. Electro crackles through the isolated islands of Inazuma, where eternity struggles against the inevitable tide of change. Dendro nurtures the scholars of Sumeru, where wisdom grows like flowers in carefully tended gardens of knowledge. Hydro flows through the courts of Fontaine, where justice takes the stage in grand performances of truth and consequence. Pyro burns in the hearts of Natlan's warriors, where courage blazes brighter than any flame. And in the frozen reaches of Snezhnaya, Creo preserves the ambitions of those who would reshape the world according to their will. Each nation pulses with its own rhythm, its own culture, its own dreams and fears. The Archons who rule these lands are not distant deities dwelling in unreachable heavens. They walk among their people, sharing their struggles, bearing their burdens, making choices that ripple through generations. Some embrace their divine responsibilities with open hearts, while others question whether mortals truly need gods at all. Each one carries secrets that stretch back to the founding of their realm, mysteries that connect to larger patterns spanning all of Teyvat. But there are forces in this world that transcend even the authority of Archons. High above the 7 nations, beyond the reach of mortal eyes, lies Celestia, the floating island where the highest powers dwell. From this celestial realm come laws that govern not just Teyvat, but the fundamental nature of reality itself. The heavenly principles that emanate from Celestia determine which beings may ascend to godhood, which civilizations may prosper, and which knowledge mortals are permitted to pursue. It is here, at the threshold between Teyvat and the greater cosmos, that our story truly begins. The siblings approach this beautiful world with hearts full of anticipation, eager to explore its wonders, to walk its roads, to meet its people, and learn its secrets. They have no reason to expect anything other than another pleasant journey through another fascinating realm. They have traveled for so long, seen so much, that the possibility of being unwelcome has never occurred to them. But Teyvat is not like other worlds they have visited. Something ancient and terrible guards its borders, something that views their arrival not as a gift, but as a threat. The unknown god, the sustainer of heavenly principles. manifests before them like a storm given consciousness and purpose. She speaks with the authority of absolute power, her words carrying the weight of cosmic law. The siblings have never encountered anything like her. In all their travels, across all the worlds they have visited, they have been welcomed or ignored, celebrated or forgotten, but never actively opposed. The concept of being denied passage, of having their freedom curtailed, is so foreign to their experience that they initially cannot comprehend what is happening. The unknown god sees them as intruders, as beings whose very presence threatens the careful order she has spent eons maintaining. She speaks of arrogation, of boundaries that must not be crossed, of principles that must not be violated. Her power manifests as geometric patterns that slice through reality itself, creating barriers that even beings as mighty as the siblings cannot simply bypass through will alone. The battle that follows is brief but devastating. The siblings fight with everything they possess, drawing upon powers that could reshape continents, wielding abilities that bend the fundamental forces of existence to their will. But the unknown god is not merely powerful. She is purpose incarnate. She represents the weight of cosmic law, the absolute authority of principles that predate the formation of worlds. She captures one sibling, sealing them away in prison of crystallized space and time. The other watches in horror as their companion, their other half, their constant companion across infinite journeys, disappears into geometries that hurt to perceive. They reach out, desperately, calling across the void that suddenly separates them, but their voice finds no answer. The unknown god turns her attention to the remaining sibling, and her power washes over them like a tide of liquid starlight. Ancient abilities that have served them across countless worlds simply vanish, stripped away as easily as removing a cloak. The freedom that has defined their existence for longer than most civilizations have existed crumbles into dust and fading memory. Consciousness flickers like a candle in a hurricane. The sibling falls through layers of reality, through dimensions of space that fold in on themselves, through time that moves in spirals rather than straight lines. They tumble toward Teyvat proper, no longer a visitor, but a refugee, no longer a being of cosmic power, but something much smaller and more vulnerable. When awareness returns, it comes slowly, like dawn breaking over mountains shrouded in mist. The sibling finds themselves on a beach where waves lap gently against pristine sand. Above them, seabirds call to each other in languages they do not recognize. The air tastes of salt and possibility, but also of loss so profound that it seems to have weight and texture. They are alone in a way they have never been alone before. The absence of their other half creates a hollow space in their chest that aches with every breath. They reach out instinctively, searching for the familiar presence that has always been there, and find nothing but emptiness stretching in all directions. A small sound draws their attention. Nearby, something struggles in the shallow water, too weak to swim to shore. Without thinking, the sibling wades into the surf and rescues what appears to be a tiny fairy-like being, no larger than their hand. The creature is unconscious, her small form barely breathing, her gossamer wings torn and bedraggled. This is their first act in their new world, their first choice as a stranded traveler, rather than a cosmic wanderer. They could have walked past, could have focused entirely on their own desperate situation, could have allowed grief and loss to blind them to the suffering of others. Instead, they choose compassion, choose to help a small being who cannot help herself. As they carry the tiny fairy to dry land, something stirs within the hollow space where their sibling's presence should be. Not healing, not wholeness, but the faintest glimmer of purpose. They are alone, powerless, lost in a world that has already proven hostile to their kind. But they are not without choices. They are not without the ability to act, to help, to make a difference in small but meaningful ways. The fairy begins to stir as warmth returns to her small form. When she opens her eyes, they sparkle with gratitude and curiosity in equal measure. she speaks in a voice like tinkling bells, introducing herself as Paimon, emergency food extraordinaire and guide to all things Teyvat. Her cheerful demeanor cannot entirely mask the relief in her expression, the recognition that she has been saved from a fate she prefers not to think about too carefully. Paimon listens to the traveler's story with growing amazement and sympathy. She has never heard of beings who could travel between worlds, never imagined powers that could reshape reality itself, never conceived of love so strong that separation feels like a wound that will never heal. But she recognizes pain when she sees it, recognizes the hollow look of someone who has lost everything that mattered to them. She offers what she can, which is knowledge of this world that has become the traveler's prison. She speaks of the 7 nations, of the Archons who rule them, of the elemental powers that flow through everything like blood through veins. She explains the statues of the 7, monuments that can grant elemental abilities to those who touch them with proper intent. She describes the Adventure Guild, an organization that helps people solve problems too dangerous or complex for ordinary means. Most importantly, she offers companionship to someone who has never needed it before, but desperately needs it now. Her presence cannot fill the void left by the missing sibling. Nothing could do that. But it provides something to focus on besides loss, someone to care about besides themselves, a reason to keep moving forward when every instinct screams to simply lie down on the beach and wait for the world to end. Together, they begin walking inland, leaving the crash site behind. The traveler's feet sink slightly into sand that gradually gives way to grass, then to packed earth worn smooth by countless other travelers. They are following a road now, a path that leads toward distant spires barely visible through morning haze. The landscape around them pulses with elemental energy in ways the traveler has never experienced before. In other worlds, power flowed according to natural laws, predictable and consistent. Here, Anemo dances through the air with playful intelligence, as if the wind itself possesses personality and whim. Flowers turn to follow their passage, not because of sunlight, but because they sense the presence of someone touched by forces beyond the ordinary. This is Mondstadt territory, the nation of freedom where the Anemo Archon Barbatos supposedly rules with such a light touch that many citizens have never seen him. The very air here seems infused with concepts of liberty and choice, of paths that branch in all directions rather than leading toward predetermined destinations. For someone who has just had their freedom stripped away by cosmic forces, there is bitter irony in arriving in a land that celebrates what they have lost. But there is also hope, fragile as spider silk but present nonetheless. If this is a world where freedom is valued, where choices matter, where individuals can shape their own destinies, then perhaps it is also a world where lost siblings can be found, where cosmic injustices can be challenged, where even the sustainer of heavenly principles might eventually be called to account for her actions. The road ahead stretches toward horizons painted in shades of possibility and uncertainty. Behind them, the beach where their old life ended grows smaller with each step. Before them, the towers of Mondstadt city rise like promises written in stone and glass, offering shelter, answers, and the beginning of a journey that will span nations, challenge gods, and ultimately lead them back to the truth about their siblings' fate. Their first glimpse of Mondstadt proper takes the traveler's breath away. The city rises from the landscape like a song made manifest, its windmills turning lazily in breezes that carry the scent of freedom itself. Massive walls embrace clusters of buildings that seem to grow organically from the earth, their red roofs and white walls creating a harmony that speaks of centuries of careful cultivation. Above it all, a cathedral reaches toward the sky with spires that catch and hold the light, as if the very architecture is designed to lift spirits heavenward. Paimon chatters excitedly as they approach the main gates, pointing out landmarks and sharing fragments of local lore. She speaks of the Knights of Favonius, noble protectors who maintain order without crushing the spirit that makes this nation unique. She mentions Diluk, a mysterious tavern owner, whose past holds secrets darker than his famous wines. She describes festivals where the entire city dances to music carried on anemo currents. Celebrations that last until dawn paints the eastern mountains gold. But as they draw closer to the city walls, something feels wrong. The guards at the gate move with nervous energy, their eyes constantly scanning the skies rather than watching the road. Merchants hurry their wagons through the entrance as if eager to reach safety. Citizens cluster in small groups, their conversations dying when strangers approach, their expressions carrying worry that sits heavy on their shoulders. The traveler and Paimon pass through the gates without incident, but the atmosphere inside proves even more tense than outside. Market stalls that should bustle with activity stand half empty. Children play in subdued whispers rather than with the boisterous joy that should characterize a nation of freedom. Something has cast a shadow over Mondstadt, something that makes even the wind seem hesitant as it moves between buildings. Their questions find answers when a tremendous roar echoes from above. Citizens scatter like leaves before a storm, seeking shelter beneath awnings and in doorways. The traveler looks up to see something that defies easy description, a dragon of impossible size and terrible beauty soaring overhead. Its scales catch sunlight and throw it back in patterns that hurt to watch directly. Its wings create downdrafts that rattle windows and send loose papers spiraling through the streets. This is Dvalin, once known as the Dragon of the East, one of the four winds that protected Mondstadt in ages past. But corruption has twisted his noble heart into something angry and destructive. He circles the city like a predator, his cries carrying notes of pain that make listeners want to weep. The citizens call him Storm Terror now, a name that speaks to fear rather than reverence, to destruction rather than protection. Paimon explains what she knows of the situation while they take shelter in a nearby alcove. Months ago, Dvalin began attacking the city without warning or apparent reason. The Knights of Favonius have tried everything they can think of to stop him, from negotiations to direct confrontation, but nothing has worked. The dragon seems driven by forces beyond rational understanding, consumed by rage that grows stronger with each passing day. When the immediate danger passes and citizens emerge from their hiding places, a young woman approaches with determined strides. Her short brown hair frames a face marked by responsibility far beyond her years, and her clothing bears the insignia of the Knights of Favonius. This is Amber, an outrider whose job involves scouting the wilderness around Mondstadt and protecting travelers from the dangers that lurk beyond civilization's borders. Amber's eyes widen as she takes in the traveler's appearance. There is something otherworldly about them that cannot be hidden. Something that speaks of origins far beyond Teyvat's borders. Her training has taught her to recognize threats, but also to identify those who might become allies. After a moment of careful evaluation, her expression shifts from wariness to curiosity, then to something approaching hope. She introduces herself with the cheerful professionalism that characterizes the knights at their best, offering assistance to travelers who clearly need guidance. When the traveler explains their situation in carefully vague terms, speaking of lost family and the need to explore this world in search of answers, Amber's expression grows thoughtful. She has heard stranger tales in her time as an outrider, and something in the traveler's manner suggests they might possess abilities that could help with Mondstadt's current crisis. The conversation is interrupted by another of Dvalin's attacks, this one closer and more violent than the last. The dragon's claws rake across rooftops, sending tiles cascading into the streets below. His breath creates whirlwinds that threaten to tear buildings from their foundations. Citizens run for cover once again, but this time some are not fast enough to reach safety. Without conscious thought, the traveler steps into the chaos. Their lost powers may be gone, but something deeper remains, something that responds to need rather than will. They reach out toward a statue of the Seven that stands in the city's central square, and a Nemo energy flows into them like water finding its level. The wind answers their call, not with the cosmic force they once wielded, but with something more intimate and immediate. They use their newfound abilities to shield civilians from falling debris, to clear paths through the wreckage, to create barriers of compressed air that deflect the dragon's most devastating attacks. It is not enough to drive Dvalin away, but it is enough to prevent catastrophe, enough to save lives that would otherwise be lost. Amber watches this display with growing amazement. She has never seen anyone adapt to elemental powers so quickly, never witnessed such instinctive understanding of how Anemo flows through the world. When the dragon finally retreats and the immediate crisis passes, she approaches the traveler with new respect and something approaching awe. The aftermath brings introductions to other key figures in Mondstadt's hierarchy. Kaeya, the smooth-talking cavalry captain whose easy smile masks depths that few are allowed to see. Zhong, the acting Grand Master whose dedication to her people borders on self-destruction, who carries the weight of the city's safety on shoulders that sometimes seem too slender for such burdens. Lisa, the librarian whose lazy demeanor conceals one of the sharpest intellects in the region, whose knowledge of elemental theory runs deeper than most scholars achieve in lifetimes of study. Each of these individuals recognizes something special in the traveler, something that might offer hope in their desperate struggle against the corrupted dragon. But they also sense the grief that drives this strange newcomer, the hollow place where something precious once lived. They offer what comfort they can while carefully probing for information about the traveler's true capabilities and intentions. The honorary night ceremony that follows feels both significant and surreal. Jean speaks words of welcome and responsibility, while citizens cheer with genuine gratitude for the traveler's intervention during the attack. But the traveler can barely focus on the proceedings, their thoughts constantly drifting to the missing sibling, to the unknown god, to questions that seem to multiply faster than answers can be found. Paimon stays close throughout the ceremony, her presence a small anchor in the swirl of new experiences and overwhelming responsibilities. She whispers explanations of local customs, points out important figures in the crowd, and provides the kind of companionship that keeps grief from consuming everything else. Her loyalty has already become absolute, forged in the moment of rescue, and strengthened by every shared experience since. As evening falls over Mondstadt, the traveler stands on the city walls and looks out over the landscape they must explore. Somewhere in this world, their sibling waits in whatever prison the unknown god has created. Somewhere among the 7 nations, answers lie hidden in ancient texts, forgotten ruins, and the memories of gods who have witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. The wind carries promises and warnings in equal measure, speaking of adventures that will test every limit, of allies who will become closer than family, of enemies whose power dwarfs anything they have yet encountered. It whispers of temples that hold fragments of divine truth, of artifacts that channel the wills of dead gods, of secrets that certain powers will kill to keep hidden. Tomorrow will bring their first real steps into this larger quest, their first encounters with the deeper mysteries that shape Teyvat's reality. They will seek out the temples that channel Dvalin's corruption, cleanse the poison that has turned a noble guardian into an instrument of destruction, and begin to understand the forces that truly govern this world. But tonight, they simply stand and remember what it felt like to have their other half beside them, sharing every sunset, every discovery, every moment of wonder that made their endless journey worthwhile. The ache of separation has not diminished, but it has become something they can carry rather than something that carries them. In helping Mondstadt's people, in accepting responsibilities they never asked for, in choosing to move forward despite the pain, they have taken their first steps toward becoming someone worthy of the reunion they desperately seek. The stars wheel overhead, in patterns both familiar and strange, constellations that speak of destiny and choice, of paths that diverge and converge according to laws that even gods do not fully understand. Among those distant lights, cosmic forces continue their eternal dance, unaware that their actions have set in motion events that will ultimately challenge the very foundations upon which their power rests. In the quiet moments before sleep claims them, the traveler makes a silent promise to the missing sibling, to themselves, and to the wind that carries all vows to their ultimate destinations. They will grow stronger, learn deeper truths, gather allies whose combined power can challenge even cosmic authority. They will uncover every secret, solve every mystery, overcome every obstacle that stands between them and their ultimate goal. The reunion will come, no matter how long the journey requires, no matter what powers must be faced along the way. This world may have been intended as their prison, but it will become instead the forge where they are transformed into something capable of defying the unknown god herself. The first true test of their resolve comes sooner than expected. 3 ancient temples scattered across Mondstadt's wilderness hold the key to understanding Dvalin's corruption, each one a fragment of a larger puzzle that reaches back to the foundation of this nation itself. These are not merely ruins left by forgotten civilizations, but active conduits through which elemental energy flows like blood through arteries, connecting the dragon to forces that twist his noble nature into something monstrous and destructive. The Temple of the Falcon sits high in the mountains where wind currents create harmonies that once soothed Dvalin's spirit during his long flights above the clouds. Now those same currents carry poisonous whispers, abyssal corruption that seeps into his consciousness like ink spreading through clear water. The traveler and Paimon make their way up treacherous paths where loose stones cascade into misty valleys far below, following trails that seem designed more for creatures with wings than for those bound to walk upon solid ground. Inside the temple, ancient mechanisms respond to elemental touch with reluctant groans and shuddering movements. Pressure plates that once activated at the lightest caress now require focused application of animo power to function properly. The corruption has spread through the very stones, creating blockages in energy channels that have flowed freely for thousands of years. Each purified conduit releases a burst of crystalline light that pushes back the shadows, revealing murals that tell stories of better days when dragon and city existed in perfect harmony. The Temple of the Wolf crouches in dense forests where massive trees create canopies so thick that noon feels like twilight. Here, Razor makes his home among the lupine pack that raised him from childhood, a boy who speaks more fluently with wolves than with humans, whose understanding of nature runs deeper than most scholars achieve through decades of study. He watches the traveler's approach with eyes that reflect more than simple curiosity, recognizing something in their elemental signature that speaks of power beyond ordinary understanding. Razor's broken speech carries wisdom that formal education could never provide. He knows the forest's moods, understands how the corruption spreads like infection through root systems and underground streams, can sense the pain that drives Dvalin to strike out at everything he once protected. His wolves circle at safe distances, their amber eyes reflecting intelligence that borders on human comprehension, their loyalty to their strange pack member absolute and unwavering. The temple's interior challenges visitors with puzzles that require both elemental mastery and intuitive understanding of natural cycles. Wind currents must be redirected to activate dormant crystals, while pressure sequences demand perfect timing that mirrors the rhythms of seasonal change. The corruption here manifests as thorny vines that strangle ancient statuary, as shadows that move independently of their sources, as whispers in languages that predate human settlement of these lands. When purification finally comes, it arrives with the sound of a great bell tolling across impossible distances. The temple's true nature reveals itself as walls become transparent, showing vistas of primal forest that existed before the first humans set foot in Mondstadt. For a moment, time itself seems to pause, allowing glimpses of what this land was like when gods and dragons shared it as equals, when corruption was unknown and harmony reigned supreme. The Temple of the Lion demands a different kind of courage. hidden as it is in caverns that plunge deep beneath the Earth's surface. Here, darkness takes on weight and substance, pressing against visitors like living things that hunger for light and warmth. The traveler's anemo abilities create small whirlwinds that carry luminescent particles, providing just enough illumination to navigate passages that twist and branch like the root systems of enormous trees. Strange creatures inhabit these depths, beings that evolved in eternal night and know nothing of the surface world's beauty. They attack not from malice, but from instinct, defending territory they have claimed for generations beyond counting. Some possess multiple eyes that reflect available light with unsettling intensity, while others navigate purely through vibration and electromagnetic sensation, creating an environment where normal senses provide little useful information. The temple's heart contains the most concentrated corruption yet encountered, a pulsing mass of crystallized malice that seems to writhe with independent life. Approaching it requires careful timing and absolute focus, as waves of negative energy wash outward in patterns that could overwhelm unprepared minds. The purification process here proves almost overwhelming, demanding every fragment of elemental control the traveler has developed, while fighting through forces that seek to corrupt them as they have corrupted Dvalin. Success brings visions of the dragon as he once was, noble and wise, and utterly devoted to protecting the people who looked up at him with wonder rather than fear. These glimpses of better times make his current state even more tragic, showing clearly what has been lost and what might still be saved if the right approach can be found. Each cleansed temple sends ripples of restored harmony across the landscape, creating changes that even ordinary citizens can feel in their bones. Flowers bloom out of season, releasing fragrances that carry hints of ancient peace. Springs that had run muddy for months suddenly flow clear and sweet. Birds return to areas they had abandoned, filling the air with songs that speak of hope restored, and balance returning to a world that had forgotten what true harmony felt like. But cleansing the temples proves to be only the first step in a much larger process. The corruption source runs deeper than mere environmental contamination, reaching into the dragon's very soul through connections that span centuries of shared history. Understanding Dvalin's pain requires delving into Mondstadt's past, uncovering events that official histories have either forgotten or deliberately obscured, following threads that lead back to the Archon War and the terrible prices that gods paid for the right to rule their chosen domains. Barbara, the beloved deaconess whose healing songs can literally mend broken bones and wounded spirits, provides crucial assistance in this deeper investigation. Her connection to Mondstadt's spiritual traditions runs through bloodlines that reach back to the city's founding, and her access to cathedral archives reveals documents that few living people have ever seen. She speaks of ancient compacts between dragon and Archon, of promises made in languages that predate human writing, of bonds that were meant to last until the stars themselves grew cold and distant. The holy Lyre der Himmel becomes central to their efforts, an artifact of such power that its music can reach across dimensional barriers to touch souls that have retreated into spaces beyond ordinary perception. But the lyre rests in the cathedral under heavy guard, protected by knights who have sworn oaths that prevent them from allowing anyone to remove it, regardless of the crisis that threatens their city. This creates a moral dilemma that tests the traveler's growing understanding of justice and necessity. Taking the lyre requires deceiving good people who are simply doing their duty, while leaving it untouched condemns Dvalin to continued suffering, and Mondstadt to ongoing destruction. The solution, when it finally presents itself, demonstrates the kind of creative thinking that will become essential for navigating the complex ethical landscape of a world where gods make mistakes, and heroes must sometimes act outside the law to serve the greater good. The theft itself becomes an adventure worthy of legends, requiring careful coordination between multiple parties who must trust each other completely despite having known each other for only days or weeks. Diluc emerges as an unlikely ally, his knowledge of Mondstadt's hidden passages and his network of informants proving invaluable for an operation that must succeed without causing permanent damage to the city's defenders. Kaya's involvement adds layers of complexity that hint at deeper currents flowing beneath Mondstadt's surface politics. His easy cooperation with plans that technically constitute treason suggests either remarkable flexibility in his interpretation of duty or hidden agendas that align with the traveler's goals for reasons not yet fully revealed. His smooth competence in matters of infiltration and misdirection raises questions about his past that he deflects with charm and humor, maintaining friendly distance even while providing essential assistance. When the lyre finally rests in their hands, its weight seems to exceed what mere wood and metal should possess. The instrument thrums with accumulated music from centuries of sacred performances, carrying echoes of prayers that reach the ears of gods, of celebrations that united entire communities in joy, of lamentations that helped process grief too deep for ordinary words. Playing it properly requires not just technical skill, but emotional connection to the traditions it represents, understanding of the spiritual currents that flow through Mondstadt's collective consciousness. The confrontation with Dvalin, when it finally comes, takes place in a realm that exists partially outside normal space and time. The dragon's lair occupies a pocket dimension where corrupted energy has crystallized into structures that defy architectural logic, where gravity operates according to emotional rather than physical laws, where the very air carries fragments of memory from better days when trust existed between all parties. Dvalin himself appears as a creature caught between magnificence and tragedy, his scales still bearing traces of their original luster beneath layers of abyssal corruption that pulse with sickly light. His eyes hold intelligence clouded by pain and confusion, awareness of what he has become warring with memories of what he once was. When he speaks, his voice carries harmonics that resonate in listeners' bones, conveying meanings that transcend language while revealing the depth of his anguish. The battle that follows challenges every assumption about conflict resolution that the traveler has developed during their journey across worlds. This is not an enemy to be defeated through superior force, but a victim to be healed through understanding and compassion. Each attack must be carefully calibrated to disrupt corrupted energy without causing permanent harm, while each defensive action must protect not just physical safety, but emotional well-being of all involved parties. Venti's arrival transforms the entire dynamic, revealing at last the true identity of Mondstadt's absent Archon, the cheerful bard who had seemed like nothing more than an enthusiastic drunk proves to be Barbatos himself, the god of freedom who has chosen to walk among his people rather than rule from distant heights. His power, when finally unleashed, carries the weight of winds that have blown across Teyvat since the world's foundation, currents that remember every song ever sung beneath open skies. The purification process requires perfect harmony between divine authority and mortal determination, between cosmic power and individual will. The lyre's music provides the foundation, but success depends on the traveler's ability to channel their own experiences of loss and hope into melodies that speak directly to Dvalin's wounded spirit. Each note must carry perfect truth, absolute compassion, and unwavering determination to restore what has been broken, regardless of personal cost. When corruption finally breaks like storm clouds before sunrise, the transformation proves almost too beautiful for mortal eyes to witness safely. Dvalin's true colors emerge from beneath layers of poisonous crystal, revealing scales that shimmer with captured starlight, and wings that seem woven from concentrated freedom itself. His roar becomes a song that carries across continents, announcing to all who can hear that balance has returned to Mondstadt, and harmony reigns once more between dragon and city. The aftermath brings revelations that reshape the traveler's understanding of divine politics and cosmic law. Venti's explanation of the Archon system reveals how power flows between Celestia and the Seven Nations, how divine authority requires constant maintenance and careful balance, how even gods must navigate complex webs of obligation and responsibility that constrain their actions in ways that mortals rarely comprehend. More importantly, Venti confirms what the traveler has begun to suspect about their siblings' fate. The separation that seemed like random cruelty proves to be part of larger patterns that have repeated throughout Teyvat's history, cycles of arrival and imprisonment that suggest the unknown god has acted this way before, that other travelers have faced similar fates, that the cosmic laws governing this world operate according to principles that view outsiders as inherent threats to established order. This knowledge brings both hope and dread in equal measure. Hope, because it suggests their sibling still lives somewhere within Teyvat's dimensional structure, trapped but not destroyed, waiting for rescue by someone with sufficient power and determination to challenge the cosmic authorities directly. Dread, because it reveals the true scope of the forces arrayed against them, powers that have maintained their grip on reality for eons and will not surrender their authority without conflicts that could reshape the fundamental nature of existence itself. As celebration fills Mondstadt's streets and Dvalin soars overhead in joyful spirals that speak of freedom restored, the traveler stands apart from the festivities and contemplates the road ahead. One crisis has been resolved, one mystery partially solved, one ally gained in the person of an Archon who understands the weight of cosmic law but chooses to prioritize freedom over absolute order. But 6 nations remain to be explored, 6 more Archons to be met and potentially convinced to aid in the larger quest. Each will present unique challenges that test different aspects of character and capability. Each will guard secrets that contribute to the overall puzzle of Teyvat's true nature. Each will demand prices that grow progressively higher as the stakes continue to escalate toward their ultimate confrontation with powers that view themselves as the rightful guardians of reality itself. The wind that once carried only promises now whispers warnings as well, speaking of trials that will test every limit, of sacrifices that will cut deeper than any blade, of choices that will define not just personal destiny, but the fate of everyone who calls this world home. The journey toward reunion has truly begun, and there can be no turning back from the path that leads through 7 nations toward whatever cosmic tribunal will ultimately decide whether love proves stronger than law, whether determination can overcome divine decree, whether 2 siblings separated by the unknown god can truly find their way back to each other despite all the forces arrayed against their reunion. The journey from Mondstadt to Liyue unfolds like pages turning in an ancient tome, each mile revealing new wonders that speak of civilizations built upon foundations deeper than memory itself. The traveler and Paimon follow merchant roads that have carried countless caravans between these great nations, paths worn smooth by generations of traders whose dreams of prosperity have shaped the very landscape through their passage. As Mondstadt's windswept highlands give way to Liyue's golden valleys, the change in elemental atmosphere becomes immediately apparent. Where Animo had danced with playful freedom through mountain passes, Geo now pulses with steady determination through every stone and grain of soil. This is a land that values contracts above chaos, stability above spontaneity, where the very earth seems to hum with accumulated wealth and carefully negotiated agreements that bind gods and mortals in webs of mutual obligation. Liyue Harbor rises from the coastline like a crown jewel set in precious metal. Its architecture, speaking of prosperity, earned through centuries of careful cultivation and strategic positioning. Massive ships from distant nations dock at piers that extend into waters so deep that their bottoms have never been mapped. Markets bustle with energy that never truly sleeps, as merchants from across Teyvat gather to trade goods that range from common necessities to artifacts that pulse with elemental power. The rite of dissension draws crowds from across the continent, pilgrims and profit-seekers alike gathering to witness the annual appearance of Rex Lapis, the Geo-Archon whose contracts have maintained peace and prosperity for over 3,000 years. Unlike Mondstadt's absent god who prefers to walk among his people in disguise, Rex Lapis appears in his true form during this sacred ceremony, his dragon-like presence commanding reverence that borders on worship. But the ceremony that should celebrate divine guidance instead becomes a moment that shatters every assumption about Archons and their relationship to the mortals they protect. Rex Lapis descends from the heavens as expected, his massive form casting shadows across the assembled crowd, his presence radiating power that makes the very air shimmer with barely contained energy. Then, without warning or explanation, his body plummets lifeless toward the earth, divine light fading from scales that moments before had blazed with cosmic authority. The crowd's transformation from reverent anticipation to horrified panic creates chaos that threatens to tear the ceremony apart completely. Citizens flee in all directions while guards struggle to maintain order, and officials shout conflicting commands over the din of thousands of voices raised in fear and confusion. The traveler finds themselves swept up in events beyond their control, their foreign appearance making them an obvious suspect in what appears to be the assassination of a god. The chase that follows through Liyue's twisting streets and crowded marketplaces tests every skill they have developed since arriving in this world. Millelith soldiers pursue with professional determination, while citizens either help or hinder, depending on their individual assessment of the situation. The traveler's growing mastery of Geo allows them to create barriers and platforms that provide temporary escape routes, but each use of elemental power only confirms their exotic nature in the minds of their pursuers. Salvation comes from an unexpected source when a young man with distinctive red hair and clothing that speaks of wealth and sophistication intervenes with casual confidence that suggests he views the entire chase as an entertaining diversion rather than a serious crisis. Child's introduction carries undertones of danger wrapped in charm so practiced that it becomes impossible to determine where genuine friendliness ends and calculated manipulation begins. His revelation as one of the Fatui harbingers transforms the dynamic completely, adding layers of international intrigue to what had seemed like a local crisis. The Fatui's reputation precedes them wherever they operate, known throughout Teyvat as agents of the Cryo-Archon, whose methods prioritize results over ethical considerations, whose loyalty to their distant sovereign supersedes any obligations to local law or custom. Child's proposal seems reasonable on its surface. Clear the traveler's name by seeking the guidance of the Adepti, ancient beings whose wisdom predates human civilization in Liyue, and whose authority even Rex Lapis respected. But his easy assistance raises questions about his true motives that multiply faster than answers can be found. Harbingers do nothing without purpose, and purposes that serve Snezhnaya's interests rarely align with those of other nations. The journey into Liyue's wilderness reveals landscapes that seem sculpted by divine hands, working in concert with geological forces beyond ordinary comprehension. Stone forests rise like cathedrals dedicated to unnamed gods, their formations creating acoustic effects that turn whispered words into proclamations that echo across miles. Ancient bridges span chasms so deep that dropped stones never produce audible impacts, their construction techniques lost to time despite the structure's obvious stability. The Adepti themselves prove to be beings caught between divine and mortal natures, possessing wisdom accumulated over millennia, while remaining bound to physical forms that limit their ability to act directly in worldly affairs. Mooncarver speaks in riddles that require careful interpretation, his words carrying meanings that shift depending on the listener's perspective and understanding. Mountain Shaper demonstrates power over stone that makes mountains dance like water, reshaping landscapes with casual gestures that reveal how insignificant mortal concerns must seem from his perspective. Cloud Retainer's mechanical innovations blend ancient wisdom with techniques that surpass anything mortal engineers have achieved, creating devices that operate according to principles that bridge the gap between elemental manipulation and pure technology. Her domain showcases inventions that could revolutionize Liyue's infrastructure if she chose to share her knowledge, but her isolation speaks to the careful distance that Adepti maintain from human society. Each Adeptus carries grief for Rex Lapis that runs deeper than mere sorrow, representing the loss of a connection that had sustained them for thousands of years. Their relationship with their Archon transcended simple loyalty or worship, existing as a bond between peers who had weathered cosmic storms together and shaped this land according to shared visions of prosperity and harmony. The revelation of their willingness to wage war against Liyue Harbor in response to their Archon's apparent murder demonstrates how quickly divine politics can escalate beyond mortal comprehension. These are beings whose power could level cities, whose anger could reshape coastlines, whose grief could manifest as natural disasters that would be remembered in legends for generations. The prospect of conflict between Adepti and humans represents catastrophe on a scale that would make Dvalin's rampage seem like a minor disturbance. Zhongli's introduction as a consultant for the Wangshu funeral parlor brings an element of unexpected sophistication to the crisis, his knowledge of proper funeral rites revealing depths of learning that seem excessive even for someone whose profession involves death and remembrance. His suggestions for the materials needed to properly honor Rex Lapis demonstrate familiarity with divine customs that few mortals could possess, while his willingness to assist strangers speaks to character that runs counter to Liyue's reputation for prioritizing profit above compassion. The gathering of funeral materials becomes an odyssey through Liyue's hidden places, each item requiring journeys that reveal new aspects of this nation's character and history. Noctilicus jade must be harvested from caverns where elemental energy has crystallized into forms that pulse with their own inner light, creating underground gardens of living mineral that respond to human presence with changes in color and intensity. Silk flowers grow only in specific microclimates where geo and hydro energies intersect in perfect balance, their petals containing essences that can preserve memories across centuries when properly processed. The ritual of harvesting them requires timing that matches natural cycles, approach that respects the delicate equilibrium that allows such beauty to exist in a world where harsher forces usually dominate. Perfume ingredients come from creatures that exist at the boundary between elemental and organic life, beings whose essences carry fragrances that can evoke specific emotions in those who encounter them. The ethics of gathering such materials raises questions about consent and exploitation that the traveler must navigate without clear guidance from established moral frameworks. Ningguang's introduction transforms the political landscape completely. Her authority is Tianquan, revealing how power truly operates in Liyue's complex hierarchy. Her jade chamber floating above the harbor represents achievement that transcends ordinary human limitations, a monument to ambition and capability that demonstrates what mortals can accomplish when they fully embrace the possibilities that elemental mastery provides. Her investigation into the Fatui's activities uncovers networks of influence that span multiple nations, revealing how Snezhnaya's agents have positioned themselves to benefit from chaos, regardless of its source. The Fatui's acquisition of sigils of permission suggests preparation for actions that go far beyond simple intelligence gathering, indicating plans that could destabilize the entire regional balance of power. The confrontation at the Golden House strips away all pretense and reveals the true scope of Child's manipulation, his friendly assistance proving to be elaborate preparation for theft on a cosmic scale. His target is Rex Lapis's Gnosis, the divine artifact that connects Archons to Celestia's power, possession of which would grant the Fatui leverage in negotiations that could reshape the fundamental structure of divine authority throughout Teyvat. Childe's transformation during their battle demonstrates abilities that push the boundaries of what mortal bodies should be able to contain, his mastery of Hydro transcending normal elemental manipulation to become something that borders on divine expression. His techniques draw power from depths that seem to connect directly to primordial forces, creating attacks that challenge the traveler's growing abilities while revealing just how much the Harbingers have sacrificed in pursuit of their sovereign's goals. The activation of ancient seals that awaken Oziel represents escalation beyond anything previously witnessed, the release of a god whose imprisonment had maintained oceanic stability for centuries. This creature of pure hydro energy rises from depths that predate human civilization, its hatred for Rex Lapis burning with intensity that has only grown stronger during millennia of confinement beneath crushing waters. Osiel's assault on Liyue harbor tests every defensive system that human engineering and adeptal wisdom have created over thousands of years of careful preparation. Massive ballistas that channel geo-energy into projectiles capable of wounding divine beings prove insufficient against fury that has been compressed and concentrated until it achieves density approaching that of collapsed stars. The cooperation between Adepti and humans during this crisis demonstrates what becomes possible when ancient wisdom combines with mortal determination, their joint efforts creating defensive strategies that neither group could have achieved independently. But even their combined power proves insufficient against an enemy whose rage has been refined into weapon-grade hatred through centuries of imprisonment and meditation on revenge. Ningguang's sacrifice of her jade chamber represents a choice that defines character at the deepest possible level. The destruction of life's greatest achievement in service of protecting those who depend on her leadership. The chamber's crash into Osiel creates explosions that illuminate the night sky like artificial suns, their light visible from distances that turn the event into legend before it has even concluded. The aftermath reveals Rex Lapis's true nature and the elaborate deception that has guided events from their beginning. His staged death serving as the final test of Liyue's ability to govern itself without divine oversight. Zhongli's transformation from humble consultant to revealed Archon recontextualizes every interaction, every piece of advice, every moment of assistance in light of cosmic perspective that had been hidden behind mortal mannerisms. His contract with the Tsaritsa represents agreements that operate on scales beyond ordinary comprehension, negotiations between divine beings whose goals encompass not just individual nations, but the fundamental structure of reality itself. The willing surrender of his gnosis speaks to purposes that transcend immediate political considerations, suggesting preparation for conflicts that have not yet revealed themselves, but cast shadows across future possibilities. The implications of this divine politics extend far beyond Liyue's borders, revealing patterns of cooperation and conflict between Archons that shape events across all 7 nations. The travelers' growing understanding of these cosmic relationships provides context for their own situation, while raising new questions about the unknown god's role in maintaining whatever order currently governs Teyvat's reality. Signora's appearance confirms the Fatui's involvement in events that span multiple nations, her collection of gnosis suggesting systematic preparation for actions that will require divine power on unprecedented scales. Her dismissive treatment of mortal concerns reveals attitudes that view individual suffering as acceptable costs for achieving objectives that serve larger purposes, philosophies that justify almost any action in pursuit of sufficiently important goals. The journey toward Inazuma begins with warnings that speak to dangers beyond simple political isolation. The Sakoku decree representing more than mere xenophobia to encompass fundamental rejection of outside influence that extends to cosmic forces themselves. The Vision Hunt decree adds layers of personal threat that make the traveler's approach particularly dangerous, their ability to use elemental power without a vision marking them as anomalies that Inazuma's authorities cannot categorize or control. Kazuha's introduction brings poetry to combat and philosophy to survival, his understanding of elemental harmony transcending mere technical mastery to achieve something approaching artistic expression. His friend's death in challenging the Raiden Shogun reveals the personal costs of opposing divine will, while his preservation of that friend's vision speaks to loyalty that persists beyond death itself. The sea voyage toward Inazuma's closed borders carries tension that builds with each mile, storm barriers and patrol ships representing the physical manifestation of a nation's determination to remain separate from the rest of Teyvat. The Crux fleet's willingness to risk everything for the sake of helping strangers demonstrates how individual choice can overcome official policy, how personal conviction can challenge even the most absolute authority when properly motivated. Beidu's reputation as a captain who has defeated sea monsters with nothing but determination and a well-trained crew speaks to possibilities that exist when mortals refuse to accept limitations that others consider absolute. Her ship becomes a floating embassy of freedom in waters controlled by tyranny, a reminder that some things cannot be conquered as long as people remain willing to fight for them. The approach to Inazuma's shores brings the first glimpse of a nation transformed by isolation into something that prioritizes order above all other considerations, where the pursuit of eternity has created conditions that seem designed to prevent any form of change or growth. The very atmosphere feels heavy with accumulated authority, as if the air itself has been compressed under the weight of divine will that brooks no opposition or question. Toma's assistance in navigating Inazuma's complex bureaucracy reveals how resistance can operate within systems of oppression, how individuals can maintain compassion and humanity even when surrounded by institutions designed to crush such qualities. His connection to the Kamisato clan provides access to power structures, while his personal ethics ensure that such access serves humanitarian rather than purely political purposes. The Vision Hunt decree's true nature becomes apparent through encounters with its victims, people whose ambitions and dreams have been literally stripped away, along with their elemental abilities. The psychological damage proves even more severe than the physical limitations, creating hollow shells where vibrant individuals once existed, demonstrating how effectively targeted oppression can destroy human spirit, even when it leaves bodies technically intact. Ayaka's introduction reveals nobility that has maintained ethical standards despite existing within systems that reward cruelty and compliance. Her dedication to protecting her people, creating conflicts between personal conscience and political necessity. Her request for assistance in opposing the Vision Hunt decree represents appeal to outsider perspective that local politics cannot provide. Recognition that some problems require solutions that come from beyond established power structures. The resistance movement on Watatsumi Island demonstrates how oppression creates its own opposition, how people denied peaceful means of redress will eventually turn to violent resistance, regardless of the costs such choices entail. Kokomi's leadership reveals wisdom that transcends her apparent youth, strategic thinking that must account for limited resources and overwhelming enemy advantages, while maintaining morale among followers who have already lost more than most people could bear. Goru's tactical expertise showcases how military knowledge adapts to circumstances that conventional training never anticipated. Guerrilla warfare that must succeed through intelligence and determination, rather than superior equipment or numbers. His loyalty to both his troops and his cause creates moral complexity that tests every decision, balancing immediate needs against long-term objectives while trying to minimize casualties among people who trust his judgment with their lives. The revelation of Fatui involvement in supplying the resistance adds layers of moral ambiguity that challenge simple narratives about heroism and villainy, their assistance coming with prices that may not become apparent until after critical decisions have already been made. The delusions they provide offer power that comes at terrible personal cost, temporary strength that burns away life force and leaves users hollow shells of their former selves. Tepei's tragic fate demonstrates these costs in personal terms that make abstract political calculations feel like deliberate cruelty, his rapid aging and death serving as warning about the true nature of assistance that seems too generous to be believed. His sacrifice galvanizes the traveler's determination, while revealing how external manipulation can corrupt even the most noble causes, turning resistance movements into unwitting tools that serve interests opposite to their stated goals. The confrontation with Scaramouche in the Delusion Factory strips away any remaining illusions about Fatui methods or motivations. His contempt for human life, revealing attitudes that view mortal suffering as entertainment rather than tragedy. His power transcends anything previously encountered, techniques that manipulate reality itself rather than merely bending elemental forces to conscious will. Yaemiko's intervention demonstrates authority that operates according to different rules than either human politics or Fatui manipulation, her connection to Inazuma's spiritual traditions providing alternatives to purely military solutions. Her knowledge of the Raiden shogun's true nature reveals complexities that transform the conflict from simple resistance against tyranny into something that requires understanding of divine psychology and cosmic purpose. The revelation of Ai's isolation within the plane of Euthymia explains how a goddess dedicated to protecting her people became the source of their oppression, how the pursuit of eternal preservation created conditions that prevented the growth and change that make life worth preserving. Her puppet's rule in her absence demonstrates what happens when divine authority becomes divorced from divine wisdom, when power operates without the compassion that should guide its application. The trial by combat that determines Signora's fate reveals justice that operates according to cosmic rather than human law, divine judgment that cannot be appealed or negotiated regardless of political considerations. Her defeat and execution demonstrate that even Harbinger status provides no protection against the consequences of challenging Archon authority directly, while also revealing the terrible swiftness with which divine justice can eliminate threats to established order. The confrontation between Traveler and Raiden Shogun tests every limit that has been developed through previous trials. Her pursuit of eternity, creating attacks that seem designed to remove opponents from the flow of time itself. Her techniques transcend mere combat to become expressions of philosophical principles made manifest through divine will. Each strike carrying the weight of absolute conviction about the necessity of preventing all change or growth. The intervention of accumulated ambitions channeled through Yae Miko's manipulation of the contest demonstrates how individual dreams can combine to challenge even the most absolute authority, how the hopes and desires of ordinary people can manifest power that rivals divine expression when properly focused and directed. The spectacle transforms combat into something approaching religious experience, revelation that reshapes understanding of what becomes possible when mortal will aligns with cosmic purpose, eons with cosmic purpose. Ai's awakening within the plane of Euthymia represents a moment of profound transformation, where divine consciousness confronts the gap between intention and consequence that had grown wider with each passing century of isolation. Her puppet's interpretation of eternal preservation had become something mechanical and cruel, lacking the wisdom that should guide such absolute power. The realization that her pursuit of unchanging perfection had created suffering rather than peace strikes with force that reverberates through dimensions beyond ordinary perception. The abolition of both the Vision Hunt Decree and the Sakoku Decree marks more than simple policy changes, representing fundamental shifts in how divine authority chooses to interact with mortal aspirations. Citizens who had lived under oppression for months suddenly find themselves breathing air that tastes of possibility rather than fear, while those whose visions had been stolen discover that elemental power flows through them once again, like streams returning to drought-stricken lands. Ayaka's quiet satisfaction at these developments reflects nobility that has maintained hope even during the darkest periods. Her faith in eventual justice proving stronger than the despair that consumes so many others. Her dedication to protecting her people finally bears fruit as Inazuma begins the slow process of healing from wounds that had seemed permanent, transformation that will require time, but now possesses the freedom to actually occur. The peace negotiations between the resistance and the shogunate reveal how quickly conflicts can shift when underlying causes are addressed, rather than merely suppressed through force. Kokomi and Sara find themselves working together despite months of warfare. Their shared commitment to protecting their respective people creating common ground that transcends previous hostilities. The process requires careful navigation of pride and past grievances, but the alternative of continued bloodshed motivates all parties to seek solutions that honor both duty and compassion. Ai's journey among her people demonstrates divine consciousness, learning to perceive reality from mortal perspectives. Her interactions with ordinary citizens revealing how dramatically her isolation had distorted her understanding of human experience. Children who approach without fear show her wonder that exists independent of political systems, while elderly citizens share memories of better times that help her comprehend what had been lost during her retreat into meditation on eternal principles. The corruption spreading through Narukami Island forces attention toward threats that transcend political boundaries, ancient poisons that seep from beneath sacred ground to twist both landscape and consciousness in ways that no amount of divine authority can simply decree away. These distortions require understanding that bridges the gap between spiritual wisdom and practical action, solutions that honor the past while allowing for growth that leads toward better futures. The sacred Sakura's role in maintaining balance reveals connections between Makoto's legacy and Ei's present responsibilities, how her deceased sister's final gift continues to protect Inazuma through mechanisms that operate beyond conscious control. The tree's roots extend through spiritual dimensions as well as physical soil, creating networks of harmony that support the entire nation's existence while remaining largely invisible to those who benefit from their protection. The confrontation with remnants of the cataclysm trapped within temporal distortions brings face-to-face encounters with Khaenri'ah's lingering anguish, soldiers who have endured 5 centuries of cursed existence while maintaining loyalty to a nation that no longer exists except in their memories. These encounters force recognition that current political conflicts exist within larger contexts of cosmic tragedy that affect all nations regardless of their individual policies or philosophies. Dainslife's appearances throughout these events provide glimpses of perspective that span centuries rather than years. His knowledge of patterns that repeat across generations, offering context that helps interpret present crises in light of historical precedents. His warnings about the Abyss Order's activities carry weight that comes from direct experience with forces that most people understand only through legends and nightmares. The chasm's exploration reveals depths that exist both literally and metaphorically, underground spaces where ancient civilizations left traces of their passage, while newer dangers manifest from sources that defy easy categorization. The collaboration between Traveler and unexpected allies demonstrates how crisis can forge bonds between individuals who would normally never interact, shared danger, creating trust that transcends cultural differences and personal reservations. Xiao's involvement in these underground adventures showcases how immortal beings carry burdens that accumulate across centuries. His dedication to protecting Liyue, requiring constant vigilance against threats that emerge from spaces between the known and unknown. His willingness to sacrifice himself for others reveals character that has been refined through endless repetition of choices that place duty above personal survival, honor above comfort. Ito and Shinobu's contributions to the group dynamic provide lighter moments that balance the weight of cosmic revelation, their friendship demonstrating how joy and loyalty can persist even in circumstances that would crush spirits less resilient than theirs. Ito's boisterous confidence masks intelligence that manifests through unconventional but effective approaches to problem solving, while Shinobu's pragmatism ensures that enthusiasm doesn't override careful planning. Yanfei's legal expertise proves invaluable when dealing with contracts and obligations that span multiple dimensions of reality. Her understanding of how agreements function in both mortal and divine contexts, helping to navigate situations where conventional law provides insufficient guidance. Her cheerful professionalism makes complex negotiations feel manageable while ensuring that all parties understand the implications of their commitments. The journey toward Sumeru begins with rumors of a nation where knowledge itself has become both currency and weapon, where the pursuit of understanding has created institutions that prioritize wisdom above all other considerations. The academia's reputation for scholarly excellence carries undertones of intellectual arrogance that suggests not all learning serves benevolent purposes, while whispers of forbidden research hint at investigations that push boundaries that perhaps should remain intact. The desert regions that border Sumeru proper showcase landscapes where ancient civilizations left, monuments to ambitions that exceeded their ability to control the forces they unleashed, ruins that pulse with energies that make the very air shimmer with barely contained power. These remnants serve as warnings about the dangers of seeking knowledge without developing the wisdom necessary to use it responsibly. King Deshret's legacy permeates the sands like a persistent fragrance, his pursuit of divine authority having transformed vast regions into testaments to the catastrophic potential of unchecked ambition. The technologies he developed continue to function centuries after their creator's death, automated systems that maintain themselves while serving purposes that their original programmers may not have fully understood. The transition from desert to rainforest marks more than simple geographical change, representing passage between different approaches to understanding reality itself. Where the desert preserves knowledge through crystallization and preservation, the forest nurtures wisdom through growth and adaptation, creating environments where learning occurs through living participation rather than academic study. Tignari's expertise in forest ecology provides grounding that balances theoretical knowledge with practical experience. His understanding of how natural systems maintain balance, offering insights that prove applicable to social and political situations, as well as environmental ones. His protective instincts toward both the forest and its visitors demonstrate how responsibility can manifest through patient education rather than authoritarian control. Cole's recovery from her traumatic past showcases how healing occurs through community support rather than individual effort alone. Her gradual rebuilding of trust in others, revealing the resilience that exists within people who have survived experiences that would destroy less determined spirits. Her friendship with Amber bridges the gap between nations while proving that genuine connection transcends political boundaries and cultural differences. The Academia's towering spires dominate Sumeru City's skyline like monuments to intellectual achievement. Their architecture designed to inspire awe while creating spaces where scholars can pursue research without interference from mundane concerns. But these same towers cast shadows that hide activities which would not survive scrutiny from outside observers, research that prioritizes results over ethical considerations. The sages who govern academic pursuits demonstrate how authority can corrupt even the most noble intentions. Their pursuit of greater understanding gradually transforming into obsession with control over the very nature of knowledge itself. Their experiments with dreams and consciousness represent violations of boundaries that should protect individual autonomy. Research that treats human subjects as resources rather than people deserving of respect and protection. Nahida's confinement within the sanctuary of Surasthana reveals how divine authority can be manipulated by those who claim to serve it, her isolation serving the sage's purposes, while preventing her from exercising the wisdom and compassion that should characterize Archon leadership. Her connection to the people of Sumeru persists despite physical separation, her consciousness reaching out through dreams to provide what guidance she can, while working toward eventual liberation. The samsara cycles that trap festival participants demonstrate how seemingly benevolent systems can become prisons when operated by those who prioritize control over genuine care. Each repetition stripping away a little more agency, while maintaining the illusion that participants retain freedom of choice. Breaking these cycles requires recognition that sometimes the most beautiful experiences can become sources of suffering when they prevent growth and change. Dunyazad's illness adds personal stakes to abstract political conflicts, her deteriorating condition serving as constant reminder of the human costs that result from the sage's pursuit of forbidden knowledge. Her courage in the face of inevitable decline inspires others to continue fighting even when victory seems impossible, her example demonstrating how individual strength can influence events that span entire nations. The revelation of the Artificial God Project showcases ambition that exceeds even King Deshret's attempts to transcend divine limitation. The sage's plan to create controllable divinity, representing the ultimate expression of academic arrogance. Their willingness to sacrifice entire populations to fuel their experiments reveals how pursuit of knowledge can become indistinguishable from the most malevolent forms of tyranny when divorced from ethical consideration. Scaramouche's transformation into the false god brings together threads of suffering and manipulation that span multiple nations. his journey from discarded creation to weapon of mass destruction, illustrating how trauma can be weaponized by those who understand how to exploit pain for their own purposes. His power in this artificial divine state transcends anything previously encountered, reality-warping abilities that make conventional combat seem utterly inadequate. The battle within the realm of consciousness requires strategies that operate according to dream logic rather than physical law, victories achieved through understanding and compassion rather than superior firepower. The combined wisdom of Sumeru's people, channeled through Nahida's connection to the collective unconscious, demonstrates what becomes possible when individual knowledge contributes to communal understanding rather than personal advancement. The restoration of Irminsul following the removal of forbidden knowledge represents healing that affects not just Sumeru, but the fundamental structure of reality throughout Teyvat. Corrupted information being replaced by truth that allows natural processes to resume their proper functions. The tree's recovery sends ripples of restoration across dimensions that most people cannot perceive, but everyone benefits from experiencing. Nahida's emergence from confinement transforms her from hidden prisoner to active leader, her true wisdom finally able to manifest through direct engagement with her people's needs, rather than distant observation of their suffering. Her approach to governance emphasizes growth and learning over rigid control, creating space for both mistakes and the growth that comes from learning to do better. The negotiation with Dottore demonstrates how cosmic politics operate according to rules that prioritize larger patterns over individual justice. The exchange of gnosis serving purposes that transcend immediate considerations of right and wrong. The Fatui's systematic collection of divine authority suggests preparation for events that will require power on scales that dwarf anything yet witnessed. The journey toward Fontaine begins with tales of a nation where justice itself has become entertainment, where trials are performed as theatrical productions that blur the line between legal proceeding and dramatic spectacle. The Hydro Archon's reputation for flamboyance and showmanship creates expectations of frivolity that mask deeper currents of purpose and responsibility. The prophecy that haunts Fontaine's collective consciousness speaks of judgment that will determine not just individual fates, but the survival of the nation itself. Floods that will either cleanse or destroy, depending on criteria that remain frustratingly vague. This uncertainty creates atmosphere where every citizen lives with awareness that their actions might contribute to either salvation or catastrophe. Furina's introduction as the Hydro Archon challenges every assumption about divine dignity and proper behavior. Her theatrical manner and apparent obsession with dramatic presentation, creating cognitive dissonance that makes observers question whether they are witnessing genuine divinity or elaborate performance. Her trials and legal proceedings transform justice into spectacle while somehow managing to achieve fair outcomes despite their unconventional methods. The Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale represents technology that transcends human understanding, a device that renders judgment according to principles that its creators cannot fully explain even to themselves. Its verdicts carry authority that supersedes human opinion while operating through mechanisms that suggest intelligence far beyond anything mortals have achieved. Liney and Lynette's magic shows provide cover for activities that extend far beyond simple entertainment, their membership in the House of the Hearth, revealing connections to Fatui operations, while their genuine care for each other demonstrates how loyalty can persist, even within organizations that prioritize mission accomplishment over personal relationships. Their performances blend genuine skill with techniques that draw upon abilities far beyond stage magic. The serial disappearances that plague Fontaine's citizens reveal crimes that operate according to logic more sinister than simple murder. Victims dissolving into primordial water rather than dying in conventional ways. These disappearances suggest threats to existence itself rather than mere physical harm, erasure that extends beyond death to encompass the fundamental fact of having ever existed. Navia's investigation into her father's death uncovers corruption that reaches into the highest levels of Fontaine's government, conspiracies that have operated for decades while maintaining facades of respectability and public service. Her determination to achieve justice for past wrongs drives her to take risks that test every limit of courage and endurance. The revelation that Fontaine's citizens are artificial humans created from primordial seawater, rather than naturally born beings, reframes the entire nature of their society, their existence dependent on maintaining balance with forces that predate human civilization. This discovery transforms the prophecy from external threat to internal vulnerability, danger that emerges from the very foundations of their being. Nouvelette's true nature as the Hydro Dragon sovereign reveals divine politics that operate on scales encompassing multiple cosmic cycles. His authority predating the current Archon system while being constrained by celestial laws that limit his ability to act directly. His measured approach to justice reflects wisdom accumulated over geological timescales, perspective that encompasses consequences far beyond immediate considerations. The trial that determines Furina's true nature exposes centuries of deception maintained through sacrifice that borders on martyrdom, her performance as Archon serving purposes that required her to abandon authentic self-expression in favor of role that demanded constant vigilance and perfect execution. Her willingness to endure this burden for the sake of protecting people who could never understand her sacrifice demonstrates dedication that transcends ordinary concepts of duty. Focala's final gambit to restore Nouvelette's complete authority while saving Fontaine's artificial population showcases divine sacrifice that operates according to principles that prioritize people over personal survival, choosing dissolution rather than allowing predicted catastrophe to claim those under her protection. Her plan succeeds at costs that cannot be undone, transformation that reshapes fundamental relationships between dragon and human authority. The battle against the all-devouring narwhal brings confrontation with forces that exist beyond Teyvat's normal reality, creatures from spaces between worlds that serve purposes incomprehensible to beings bound by conventional understanding. The entity's defeat requires cooperation between powers that rarely work together, coordination that achieves victory through unity rather than individual strength. Skirk's brief appearance provides glimpses of realms that exist beyond Teyvat's boundaries, her casual dismissal of threats that terrify others suggesting perspective that encompasses realities where even cosmic-level conflicts represent minor disturbances in larger patterns. Her knowledge of the narwhal's true nature hints at connections between current events and forces that operate according to rules that transcend local cosmic law. The aftermath of Fontaine's crisis establishes new equilibrium between human and draconic authority. Nouvelette's restored power creating possibilities for governance that honors both legal tradition and natural justice. His partnership with reformed human institutions suggests how cooperation can transcend historical conflicts when all parties commit to serving larger purposes than their own immediate interests. The transition toward Natlan begins with tales of a nation perpetually at war, where conflict has become so fundamental to cultural identity that peace itself might represent existential threat. The Pyro Archon's reputation for warrior leadership suggests governance through strength and courage rather than diplomacy or compromise, authority earned through proven ability to lead others into battle and emerge victorious. The Night Warden Wars represent conflicts that transcend ordinary political disputes, battles against forces that emerge from dimensions where conventional weapons prove inadequate, and victory requires sacrifice that extends beyond simple military casualties. These ongoing struggles demand constant vigilance from every citizen, making Natlan a nation where everyone must be prepared to fight for survival, regardless of their individual preferences or abilities. The ancient traditions of Natlan speak of heroes chosen not through birthright or political appointment, but through trials that test the deepest qualities of character and courage. These champions carry ancient names that connect them to powers beyond ordinary understanding, titles that have been passed down through generations, while accumulating strength from every bearer who is proven worthy of their burden. The pilgrimage serves as both competition and sacred ritual, drawing participants from across the nation to compete in challenges that evaluate not just physical prowess, but spiritual resilience and moral clarity. Winners earn the right to represent their tribes in the Night Warden Wars, conflicts that determine which communities will survive the ongoing assault from forces that seek to consume everything touched by light and hope. Qixing emerges from these trials carrying hopes that extend far beyond her individual ambitions, her victory representing validation for the children of Echoes, who have long struggled to maintain their traditions while adapting to changing circumstances. Her bond with the massive saurian Tepetlisaurus demonstrates harmony between human consciousness and primal elemental forces, partnership that achieves strength through cooperation rather than domination. Mualani's mastery of hydro techniques showcases how elemental abilities can transcend mere combat applications to become expressions of artistic vision and cultural identity. Her surfing skills transform dangerous ocean currents into playgrounds, where she dances with forces that would crush less skilled practitioners. Her joy in such activities infectious enough to inspire others to push beyond their perceived limitations. The hot springs that dot Natlan's volcanic landscape provide more than simple relaxation. Their mineral-rich waters carrying healing properties that address both physical wounds and spiritual exhaustion. The rituals surrounding their use reveal how therapeutic practices can become forms of communion with elemental forces, healing that encompasses entire communities rather than just individual participants. Atea's sacrifice demonstrates how knowledge of impending death can inspire choices that transcend personal preservation, her final battle against abyssal corruption, serving as example that motivates others to continue fighting even when victory seems impossible. Her willingness to spend her remaining strength protecting people she barely knew reveals character that has been refined through decades of service to principles larger than herself. The Night Kingdom exists as a realm that parallels the physical world while operating according to different rules that prioritize spiritual significance over material reality. Access to this dimension requires understanding that bridges mortal consciousness with cosmic awareness, navigation techniques that depend more on emotional intelligence than conventional mapping skills. The corruption that seeps from abyssal sources spreads like infection through both physical and spiritual dimensions, poisoning not just land and water, but memory itself, creating distortions that make it difficult to distinguish truth from manufactured falsehood. Fighting such contamination requires purification techniques that address multiple levels of reality simultaneously, cleansing that heals both immediate symptoms and underlying causes. Mavuika's leadership demonstrates how divine authority can manifest through service rather than domination. Her approach to governance emphasizing development of individual potential rather than enforcement of rigid compliance. Her willingness to share power with mortal champions reveals confidence in human capability that contrasts sharply with other Archons who maintain greater distance from their subjects. The ancient name bestowed upon the traveler carries significance that extends beyond honorary title to encompass spiritual transformation that grants access to abilities previously locked away by cosmic restrictions. This designation of Tumaini, meaning hope, reflects recognition of role that transcends individual achievement to become symbol of possibility that inspires entire communities. The ritual that creates this connection requires sacrifice from multiple participants, their combined will channeling power that exceeds what any single individual could achieve alone. The process demonstrates how collective action can overcome limitations that seem absolute when faced by isolated efforts, cooperation that manifests results impossible through purely individual endeavor. Capitano's arrival brings complications that force reconsideration of assumptions about Fatui motivations and methods. His challenge to Mavuika revealing knowledge of obligations and oaths that span centuries rather than years. His scarred condition speaks to battles fought in service of principles that have extracted terrible personal costs, while maintaining commitments that supersede individual comfort or safety. The source mechanism that becomes central to their conflict represents technology that operates at intersection of elemental manipulation and dimensional engineering, devices that can reshape reality itself when properly understood and carefully applied. Control over such instruments grants power to rewrite fundamental laws that govern how consciousness interacts with cosmic forces. Auroran's transformation from reluctant participant to genuine hero showcases how identity emerges through choices made under pressure rather than predetermined destiny or inherited characteristics. His journey from incomplete soul to integrated being demonstrates healing that addresses spiritual wounds, which conventional medicine cannot touch, restoration that requires acknowledgement and integration of all aspects of personal history. The Lord of the Night's revelation, as surviving member of angelic species, adds layers of cosmic history that reframe current conflicts within context of struggles that predate human civilization by eons. Her willingness to sacrifice herself for the sake of maintaining protective barriers reveals dedication that spans geological timescales while serving purposes that most beings cannot comprehend. The Abyss Order's assault escalates beyond previous encounters to become a coordinated campaign that threatens not just individual communities, but the fundamental structure that maintains reality's stability throughout the region. Their attacks manifest as tears in space itself, creating wounds through which corrupting influence pours like poison into previously protected spaces. The final confrontation with Gosoithim requires cooperation between mortal heroes and divine powers, their combined strength barely sufficient to contain threats that transcend ordinary categories of danger. The battle takes place across multiple dimensions simultaneously, victory requiring strategies that account for attacks that operate according to dream logic, rather than physical law. Capitano's final sacrifice demonstrates redemption that encompasses not just personal transformation but cosmic reconciliation, his merger with spiritual forces allowing the release of countless souls who had been trapped within his cursed form for centuries. His choice to free others, rather than preserve himself, reveals character that has been purified through suffering into something approaching divine compassion. The aftermath establishes new equilibrium between mortal governance and cosmic forces. Natlan's independence secured through trials that have proven their worthiness to stand alongside rather than beneath divine authority. The nation's future remains uncertain, but now possesses freedom to develop according to their own choices, rather than external mandate. Durdith's appearance introduces mysteries that connect to the traveler's personal history, while raising questions about temporal mechanics that govern how past and present interact within Teyvat's reality. Her search for the prophesied savior reveals knowledge of events that span multiple timelines, suggesting manipulation of causality itself by forces that operate beyond conventional understanding. The hibernation chamber key serves as tangible link to the siblings' shared past, while providing evidence that their separation was planned rather than accidental. Their arrival in Teyvat, part of larger patterns that encompass multiple cosmic cycles. The key's existence suggests preparation for reunion that extends beyond simple hope to encompass active intervention by agencies whose purposes remain hidden. The connection between Durdith's homeland and Khaenri'ah's destruction reveals how current events echo tragedies that occurred centuries ago, patterns of catastrophe and survival that repeat across different civilizations while following similar trajectories of rise and fall. Her immortal curse links her personally to these historical cycles, making her both witness and participant in cosmic dramas that span multiple generations. The time loop that preserves her memories, while allowing limited interaction with present events, demonstrates how temporal mechanics can become weapons in cosmic conflicts, tools for manipulating causality to achieve outcomes that would be impossible through conventional means. Her ability to maintain consciousness across centuries while retaining hope for eventual resolution reveals resilience that transcends normal human limitations. The revelation of the traveler's sibling as the Abyss Prince transforms understanding of the current conflict from external threat to internal tragedy, family reunion complicated by ideological differences that have developed during their separation. The prince's commitment to Khaenri'ah's restoration reflects loyalty to adopted homeland that has superseded original bonds. Dedication that makes reconciliation more complex than simple reunion. The loom of fate represents technology that can reshape reality according to conscious will. Devices that blur the line between creation and manipulation, while offering possibilities for correcting cosmic injustices. Control over such instruments grants power to challenge even divine authority, capabilities that could restore what has been lost or create entirely new forms of existence. The negotiation with Istaroth demonstrates how temporal deities operate according to principles that encompass multiple timelines simultaneously, their perspective allowing intervention in past events while maintaining overall stability of cosmic order. Her assistance in creating moments outside normal temporal flow provides opportunities for communication that would otherwise be impossible. The choice regarding the key's custody determines whether temporal loops continue or finally achieve resolution. Decisions that affect not just individual destiny, but the fundamental nature of how past and future interact within Teyvat's reality. Each option carries consequences that extend across multiple timelines, making proper choice crucial for achieving desired outcomes. The approaching journey to Snezhnaya promises confrontations with the Tsaritsa herself and final revelation of the Fatui's ultimate objectives, their systematic collection of gnosis suggesting preparation for challenges that will require divine power on unprecedented scales. The Cryo-Archon's motivations remain hidden behind layers of political maneuvering and strategic deception, her true purposes known only to the harbingers who serve her will. The message from Vaka, carried by the Nodcry messenger, hints at discoveries that could reshape understanding of Teyvat's place within larger cosmic structures, explorations that have uncovered evidence of realities beyond the Seven Nations. These revelations suggest that current conflicts represent only small fragments of much larger patterns that encompass multiple worlds and cosmic cycles. The path forward stretches toward horizons that promise answers to questions that have driven the traveler's journey since their first awakening on Teyvat's shores. Confrontations that will determine whether love proves stronger than cosmic law, whether determination can overcome divine decree. The reunion that has been sought through Seven Nations approaches at last, though its form may differ dramatically from what either sibling originally envisioned when they first arrived in this world of gods and elemental forces. Each step of this incredible journey has transformed not just the traveler's understanding, but their very nature, experiences that have forged them into someone capable of standing as equal to Archons and cosmic forces that once seemed impossibly distant. The bonds formed with companions met along the way have created new forms of family that supplement rather than replace the original sibling connection. Relationships that will endure regardless of how the ultimate reunion unfolds. The winds of change continue to blow across all Seven Nations, carrying whispers of transformation that will reshape not just individual destinies, but the fundamental relationship between mortal and divine throughout Teyvat. The unknown god's original intent to imprison cosmic travelers within this reality has instead created catalysts for change that threaten the very order she sought to preserve. Irony that demonstrates how attempts to prevent transformation often become the forces that ensure its eventual arrival. The story that began with separation approaches its climax through paths none of the original participants could have predicted. Journeys that have revealed truths about the nature of existence that challenge every assumption about power, purpose, and the possibility of genuine connection across cosmic distances. The final chapters await writing through choices yet to be made, adventures yet to be undertaken, confrontations that will determine whether this tale ends in tragedy or triumph, separation or reunion. the triumph of law, or the victory of love that transcends all boundaries. Transcends all boundaries. The echoes of Natlan's liberation still resonate through the elemental currents as our story approaches its most profound revelations. The traveler stands at the threshold of understanding, their journey through 7 nations, having forged them into something far greater than the cosmic wanderer who first awakened on Teyvat's shores. Each trial has added layers to their character. Each friendship has deepened their connection to this world that was meant to be their prison but has become their forge. The message carried by the Nodcry automaton speaks of discoveries that stretch beyond Teyvat's borders, hints of realities that exist in the spaces between worlds where cosmic travelers once roamed freely. Varka's expedition has uncovered evidence that the 7-nation structure represents only a small fragment of existence, that beyond the reach of Celestia's authority lie realms where different rules govern the relationship between mortal and divine consciousness. These revelations transform the traveler's understanding of their original purpose in ways that make their quest for reunion more urgent while simultaneously revealing its true complexity. The unknown. God's imprisonment of their sibling was not random cruelty, but calculated intervention in patterns that span multiple cosmic cycles, actions that serve purposes so vast that individual suffering becomes invisible against the backdrop of universal order. The journey towards Snezhnaya begins under circumstances unlike any previous transition between nations, the political landscape transformed by events that have shaken the foundations of divine authority throughout Teyvat. The Fatui's systematic collection of noses has progressed beyond simple accumulation to active preparation for conflicts that will require power on scales that dwarf anything previously witnessed. The Tsaritsa's domain extends across frozen wastes, where survival demands constant vigilance against cold that can kill. Within moments, landscapes where the very air crystallizes into formations that cut like blades when disturbed by careless movement. This is a nation that has embraced harshness as virtue, where strength means endurance rather than aggression, where love manifests through protection rather than gentle affection. The capital city rises from permafrost, like a monument to determination made manifest, its architecture designed to withstand storms that could level mountains, while creating spaces where human warmth can flourish despite the hostile environment. Every building speaks to the triumph of will over circumstance, engineering that transforms deadly cold into source of power, rather than obstacle to overcome. The harbingers who serve the cryo-archon represent the culmination of mortal ambition, refined through trials that would destroy lesser spirits, each one having sacrificed pieces of their humanity in exchange for abilities that approach divine expression. Their loyalty to the Tsaritsa transcends simple political allegiance to become devotion that encompasses their entire sense of identity and purpose. Piero's leadership of this organization reveals strategic thinking that operates across centuries rather than years. His plans accounting for variables that include the rise and fall of entire civilizations while maintaining focus on objectives that serve purposes beyond immediate political advantage. His knowledge of Kanria's destruction provides context that transforms the Fatui's actions from simple aggression into desperate attempt to prevent repetition of cosmic tragedy. The revelation of the Tsaritsa's true motivations reframes every previous encounter with Fatui agents, their seemingly cruel methods serving rebellion against celestial authority that has proven itself willing to destroy entire civilizations rather than allow challenges to its established order. Her collection of gnosis represents preparation for war against the heavenly principles themselves, accumulation of power necessary to protect her people from fate that befell Khaenri'ah. The confrontation between Traveler and Tsaritsa occurs not through violent conflict, but through recognition of shared purpose, their separate quests revealing complementary aspects of larger struggle against cosmic tyranny that imprisons mortals and immortals alike within systems that prioritize order over justice. Her willingness to ally with former enemies demonstrates wisdom that transcends personal grievances in favor of cooperation, necessary for achieving impossible objectives. The final gnosis changes hands, not through theft or conquest, but through negotiation between equals, who recognize that individual power means nothing compared to collective action, focused on challenging authorities that consider themselves beyond accountability. The Cryo-Archon's sacrifice of divine authority mirrors Focalor's earlier choice, while serving different purposes, each action contributing to a pattern of resistance that spans multiple nations and cosmic cycles. The gathering of all 7 Gnosis triggers responses from Celestia that confirm the floating island's active monitoring of events below, divine attention focusing on Teyvat with intensity that makes the very air shimmer with barely contained power. The unknown god's manifestation transcends her previous appearances, her presence warping reality itself as she prepares to defend cosmic order against challenges that threaten its fundamental structure. The revelation of the traveler's true nature as the 4th Descender transforms understanding of their journey from personal quest into cosmic destiny that was written into the structure of reality itself before their arrival in Teyvat. Their separation from their sibling was not punishment, but preparation, each forced to develop different aspects of power necessary for challenging systems that have maintained control over multiple realities for eons beyond counting. The reunion that finally occurs takes place not in physical space, but in dimensions that exist between moments, temporal pockets where past and future converge to allow communication across barriers that normally prevent such connection. The siblings' conversation reveals how their separate paths have led to the same understanding through different experiences, their combined perspective encompassing both love for this world and determination to free it from restrictions that prevent genuine growth. The choice that determines Teyvat's future requires sacrifice from both siblings, their willingness to transform themselves into something beyond their original nature, becoming the key that unlocks possibilities for everyone who calls this world home. Their love for each other and for the people they have met during their journeys provides foundation for decisions that will reshape the fundamental relationship between mortal and divine throughout multiple realities. The battle against Celestia's authority transcends ordinary concepts of conflict to become expression of principles that operate according to rules that encompass justice, love, freedom, and the right of conscious beings to determine their own destinies without interference from powers that claim authority through force rather than wisdom. Victory requires not the destruction of cosmic order, but its transformation into something that serves life rather than constraining it. The unknown god's defeat comes not through superior power, but through understanding that reveals the hollowness of authority that maintains itself through fear, rather than genuine care for those it claims to protect. Her dissolution marks not destruction, but liberation, release from obligations that had twisted her original purpose into something that served tyranny rather than the harmony she was created to maintain. The new order that emerges from this cosmic transformation preserves everything beautiful about Teyvat while removing restrictions that had prevented its people from achieving their full potential. The Archons retain their connections to their nations while gaining freedom to govern according to wisdom rather than mandate, their authority becoming service rather than domination. The traveler and their sibling find themselves changed by their experiences in ways that make simple return to their original existence impossible. Their consciousness expanded through connections to this world and its people that cannot be severed without losing essential aspects of who they have become. Their choice to remain in Teyvat as protectors rather than departing as conquerors demonstrates growth that encompasses not just power, but wisdom. The epilogue reveals how transformation ripples outward from its source to touch every aspect of existence. Citizens of all 7 nations discovering abilities they never knew they possessed, while maintaining the cultural identities that make each region unique. The diversity that once created separation becomes strength that serves unity, differences celebrated rather than merely tolerated. Paimon's evolution from emergency food to cosmic guide reflects how relationships can transcend their origins to become something that serves purposes neither party originally envisioned. Her loyalty and wisdom proving essential for navigation through realities that operate according to principles beyond ordinary comprehension. Her continued presence ensures that wonder and joy remain central to adventures that might otherwise become lost in cosmic significance. The statue of the Seven throughout Teyvat transform from monuments to authority into beacons of possibility, their elemental energies flowing freely to anyone who approaches with genuine intent to help others rather than merely seeking personal advantage. The democratization of power creates opportunities for ordinary citizens to contribute to their community's well-being, while preventing concentration of authority in hands that might misuse it. The Adventure Guild expands its mission beyond simple problem-solving to become network that facilitates cooperation between individuals whose combined efforts can address challenges that would overwhelm isolated attempts. Their coordination helps ensure that transformation serves everyone, rather than merely those who possessed power before change occurred. The domains that once tested worthiness now serve as training grounds where people can develop abilities safely while learning responsibility that comes with power. Their challenges designed to foster growth rather than eliminate the unworthy. The shift from competition to cooperation creates environments where everyone can contribute according to their unique strengths. The Spiral Abyss reveals its true nature as testing ground, created by previous cosmic visitors who faced similar choices about whether to challenge established order or accept imprisonment, their legacy providing guidance for those who choose to continue the struggle for freedom across multiple realities. The lessons learned there apply to challenges that extend far beyond individual achievement. The revelation of other worlds beyond Teyvat's boundaries opens possibilities for exploration that encompasses not just physical travel, but spiritual growth that comes from encountering realities where different solutions to universal problems have been attempted. Each new destination offers opportunities for learning while providing assistance to beings who face their own struggles against cosmic tyranny. The traveler's journal becomes record not just of personal adventure, but documentation of how love and determination can overcome systems that seem absolutely powerful until challenged by those who refuse to accept that suffering is inevitable. Their story inspires others to question assumptions about authority while providing practical examples of how change can be achieved through cooperation rather than conquest. The friends gathered during their journey across 7 nations form bonds that transcend species and national boundaries, their relationships proving that genuine connection can bridge any gap when based on mutual respect and shared commitment to protecting what matters most. Their continued cooperation ensures that lessons learned through struggle are not lost when immediate crisis passes. The wind that carries messages across Teyvat now sings with voices of everyone who contributed to transformation, their hopes and dreams becoming part of elemental currents that nurture growth wherever they touch. The music they create together expresses harmony that encompasses diversity rather than demanding uniformity, celebration of what makes each individual unique while recognizing common ground that connects all conscious beings. The stars that wheel overhead in patterns both familiar and strange now shine with light that reaches across dimensional boundaries to illuminate possibilities that exist in spaces between established realities. Their radiance provides guidance for those who choose to continue the journey toward greater understanding, their constancy offering comfort during moments when the path forward seems uncertain. The final image that lingers as our tale draws toward its close shows 2 siblings standing together beneath Teyvat's open sky, their reunion achieved not through return to what was, but through creation of what could be. Their love for each other has become foundation for love that encompasses entire world, their individual growth contributing to collective transformation that serves everyone who calls this reality home. The wind carries their laughter across distances that once seemed impossible to bridge, their joy infectious enough to touch hearts in all 7 nations, while reaching beyond Teyvat's borders to inspire hope in realms where similar struggles continue. Their story becomes part of larger narrative about what becomes possible when conscious beings choose cooperation over conquest, love over law, growth over stagnation. The adventure that began with separation has culminated in union that transcends the original bond to encompass connections that span multiple realities and cosmic cycles. The unknown god's attempt to imprison cosmic travelers within Teyvat has instead created catalysts for change that will continue to ripple outward across dimensions, ensuring that the principles of freedom, love, and mutual support spread to places where they are desperately needed. The dream of perfect reunion has been achieved not through return to the past, but through creation of future that honors both what was lost and what has been gained, synthesis that preserves the best of both experiences while opening possibilities for growth that neither sibling could have imagined when they first arrived in this world of gods and elemental forces. And so our journey through the complete story of Genshin Impact reaches its peaceful conclusion, not with ending but with beginning, not with closure but with opening, not with separation but with connection that will endure across whatever adventures await in the vast expanse of possibilities that stretches beyond every horizon. The tale that started with two travelers has become story that belongs to everyone who believes that love can overcome any obstacle, that determination can challenge any authority, that hope can illuminate any darkness. The gentle rhythm of waves upon distant shores carries final whispers of this epic saga, their eternal motion reminding all who listen that some journeys never truly end, but simply transform into new beginnings, new possibilities, new opportunities for growth and connection, and the kind of love that makes existence itself a gift worth celebrating across all the worlds that dance in the cosmic wind. The twilight hours deepen across Teyvat as our story finds its gentle resolution, the seven nations breathing in harmony while elemental currents carry messages of transformation to every corner of this vast world. The traveler stands beside their recovered sibling beneath constellations that seem brighter now, their light no longer filtered through the oppressive weight of cosmic restrictions that once made even stargazing feel like an act of rebellion against divine authority. Paimon floats nearby, her presence a constant reminder of how the smallest acts of kindness can reshape entire destinies. Her evolution from drowning fairy to cosmic guide speaks to possibilities that exist when beings choose to grow together rather than apart. Her wisdom earned through shared adventures that tested every limit while revealing strength that neither she nor the traveler knew they possessed. The wind carries fragments of celebration from distant cities where citizens discover abilities they never imagined while maintaining the cultural traditions that make each region unique. In Mondstadt, children learn to dance with anemo currents that respond to joy rather than command, their laughter creating melodies that echo through cathedral spires. In Liyue, merchants find that contracts written with genuine care for all parties involved seem to enforce themselves through mysterious harmonies that reward fairness and punish exploitation. Inazuma's borders remain open to travelers who approach with peaceful intentions, while A walks among her people with understanding, deepened through trials that taught her the difference between preservation and stagnation. The sacred sakura blooms with flowers that carry Makoto's blessings to every corner of the archipelago, their petals falling like gentle reminders that love persists beyond death when properly honored and remembered. Sumeru's scholars pursue knowledge that serves wisdom rather than mere accumulation, their research guided by principles that prioritize understanding over control. The Academia's towers no longer cast shadows that hide forbidden experiments, their libraries opening to all who seek learning for purposes that benefit communities rather than individual ambition. Fontaine's courts continue their theatrical proceedings, but justice now flows with the clarity of spring water rather than the murky complexity of political maneuvering. Nouvelette's authority, operates through compassion that encompasses both dragon wisdom and human understanding, his judgments creating harmony rather than merely enforcing compliance. Natlan's warriors still gather around sacred flames, but their battles now focus on protecting growth rather than simply preventing change. The ancient names carry power that serves life rather than conquering it, their bearers becoming guardians of possibility rather than weapons in cosmic conflicts that serve purposes beyond their understanding. Even Snezhnaya transforms as the Tsaritsa's rebellion achieves its ultimate goal, her nation's harsh environment becoming forge for resilience rather than mere survival. The Fatui's network evolves into a system for protecting vulnerable communities across multiple realities, their skills in infiltration and coordination serving humanitarian purposes rather than political manipulation. The Archons gather not as rulers, but as guides, their combined wisdom creating counsel that serves all nations while respecting the sovereignty that makes each region special. Their meetings occur in spaces between dimensions where time flows differently, allowing deliberation that encompasses long-term consequences while remaining responsive to immediate needs. The Harbingers find themselves transformed by purposes that align with their deepest values rather than external mandate, their individual skills contributing to collective efforts that heal wounds created by centuries of cosmic oppression. Piero's strategic genius now serves protection rather than conquest, while Child's love of battle finds expression through training programs that help others develop confidence and capability. The domains scattered throughout Teyvat evolve into spaces where communities can gather to solve problems collectively, their challenges designed to foster cooperation rather than competition. The rewards they offer benefit entire regions rather than individual adventurers, creating incentives for actions that serve the common good while honoring personal achievement. The Spiral Abyss reveals additional layers that connect to similar structures in other realities, creating network through which knowledge and assistance can flow between worlds where different approaches to universal challenges have been attempted. The lessons learned there apply to struggles that transcend individual experience to encompass cosmic patterns of growth and resistance. Trading routes between nations flourish as political barriers dissolve, merchants carrying more than simple goods to exchange ideas, techniques, and perspectives that enrich every community they visit. The roads themselves seem to respond to peaceful intentions, storms clearing and obstacles shifting to ease passage for those who travel with genuine desire to help others. The vision system transforms into something more fluid and democratic, elemental abilities manifesting in response to genuine need rather than arbitrary divine approval. Citizens discover that power flows naturally to those who use it responsibly, while those who seek dominance find their abilities diminishing until they learn to serve rather than control. Religious traditions adapt to honor divine forces that guide rather than command, prayers becoming conversations rather than desperate pleas for intervention. The temples serve as community centers where people gather to share resources and coordinate efforts, their sacred spaces fostering connection rather than enforcing separation between mortal and divine realms. The Adventure Guild expands its mission to include exploration of dimensional boundaries, their members learning to navigate spaces between worlds where refugees from cosmic tyranny seek sanctuary. Their experience in problem-solving proves invaluable for helping beings whose realities operate according to different rules adapt to new circumstances. Educational institutions throughout Teyvat develop curricula that balance practical skills with wisdom about using power responsibly, their students learning to think critically about authority while developing capabilities that serve their communities. The emphasis shifts from competing for limited opportunities to creating abundance through cooperation and innovation. The elemental resonance that flows between regions strengthens as artificial barriers dissolve, creating harmonies that enhance the natural beauty of each landscape while fostering connections that transcend geographical boundaries. Mountains sing with earth-deep melodies, while oceans carry rhythms that speak of unity rather than separation. The traveler and their sibling find themselves serving as bridges between Teyvat and the larger cosmos, their unique perspective helping others understand that transformation is possible even when existing systems seem absolutely powerful. Their story becomes inspiration for beings in other realities who face similar struggles against cosmic authorities that prioritize order over justice. The unknown. God's defeat creates ripples that extend across multiple dimensions, her dissolution marking not just local liberation, but cosmic precedent that challenges similar authorities throughout the vast network of realities that exist beyond ordinary perception. Her transformation from oppressor to cautionary tale inspires hope in places where resistance seemed impossible. The heavenly principles themselves undergo reformation as their purpose clarifies into genuine service rather than control, their authority becoming advisory rather than absolute. The floating island of Celestia opens its doors to representatives from all realms, creating council where cosmic decisions are made through discussion rather than divine decree. The artifacts and relics scattered throughout Teyvat reveal their true purposes as tools for fostering growth, rather than weapons for enforcing compliance, their power flowing to those who understand that strength serves protection rather than domination. Ancient knowledge becomes accessible to all who approach with genuine desire to help others, rather than merely advancing personal interests. The cooking fires that burn in every camp and kitchen carry warmth that extends beyond physical comfort to encompass emotional nourishment, meals shared, becoming opportunities for building connections that transcend cultural differences. The simple act of feeding others becomes expression of values that prioritize care over conquest. The music that fills taverns and echoes through mountain passes carries harmonies that speak of hope rather than merely entertainment. Bards and musicians becoming healers whose songs mend wounds that conventional medicine cannot touch. Their melodies create emotional bridges that allow understanding to flow between hearts that speak different languages. The festivals that celebrate seasonal changes evolve into expressions of gratitude that encompass not just local communities, but the entire network of realities that support conscious existence. Their rituals acknowledge interconnection rather than isolation, recognizing that individual well-being depends on collective flourishing. The children who play in streets and meadows throughout Teyvat grow up with understanding that power exists to serve life rather than control it, their games fostering cooperation rather than competition. Their laughter becomes prophecy of future, where conflict serves growth rather than merely determining winners and losers. The elderly who sit in garden squares and share stories of times past find their memories becoming bridges to wisdom that helps younger generations avoid mistakes that once seemed inevitable. Their experience becomes resource that serves community development rather than simply personal nostalgia. The merchants who travel between regions carry more than goods to exchange perspectives that enrich every community they visit, their networks facilitating not just commerce, but cultural exchange that celebrates diversity while recognizing common ground. Their success measures contribution to collective prosperity rather than individual accumulation. The scholars who pursue research in libraries and laboratories focus their efforts on questions that serve understanding rather than mere knowledge, their discoveries contributing to wisdom that benefits everyone rather than creating advantages for privileged few. Their work builds bridges between theoretical understanding and practical application. The farmers who tend fields and gardens throughout Teyvat find their crops responding to care rather than mere technique, plants growing stronger when nurtured with genuine affection rather than simply following agricultural procedures. Their harvests feed not just bodies, but spirits, creating abundance that encompasses emotional as well as physical nourishment. The artisans who craft tools and decorations in workshops throughout the 7 nations discover that their creations carry intentions as well as functions. Objects made with love and care serving their purposes more effectively than items produced purely for profit. Their work becomes expression of values that prioritize beauty and utility over mere efficiency. The storytellers who gather audiences around evening fires share tales that carry wisdom rather than simple entertainment. Their narratives helping listeners understand their place within larger patterns of meaning and connection. Their words become seeds that grow into actions, serving purposes beyond individual satisfaction. And so our journey through this vast and beautiful world draws toward its peaceful close, not with ending, but with beginning, that promises infinite possibilities for growth and discovery. The traveler and their sibling stand together beneath stars that shine with renewed brilliance, their reunion achieved through transformation that serves everyone who calls any reality home. The wind that carries their conversation across dimensional boundaries speaks of love that transcends separation, determination that overcomes any obstacle, hope that illuminates even the deepest darkness. Their story becomes part of larger narrative about what becomes possible when conscious beings choose cooperation over conquest, understanding over authority, growth over stagnation. The gentle rhythm of existence itself pulses with renewed vitality as systems that once enforced limitation transform into networks that foster unlimited potential for conscious beings to explore their capabilities while serving purposes larger than individual ambition. The cosmic dance continues with steps that honor both unity and diversity, creating harmony that encompasses all possibilities while celebrating what makes each individual unique. The final whisper of wind through ancient trees carries blessing that extends across every realm, where conscious beings seek freedom to determine their own destinies, where love struggles against law, where hope challenges systems that claim authority through force rather than wisdom. The transformation that began with two separated siblings has become revolution that will continue rippling across infinite dimensions until every conscious being understands that they possess power to shape reality according to principles that serve life rather than constraining it. The dawn breaks over Teyvat with golden light that seems to carry promises written in languages older than memory itself. In this transformed world, where cosmic barriers have dissolved and divine tyranny has given way to cooperative harmony, new stories begin to unfold like flowers opening to greet the morning sun. The traveler walks beside their recovered sibling along paths that stretch toward horizons painted with infinite possibility, their footsteps marking the beginning of adventures that will span realities beyond counting. The small communities scattered throughout the 7 nations discover strengths they never knew they possessed. Citizens awakening each morning to find that their dreams from the night before have left traces of insight that guide their daily choices. Children who played simple games yesterday find themselves creating melodies that resonate with elemental forces, their innocent joy becoming foundation for abilities that serve their families and neighbors in ways that traditional training could never achieve. The fishing villages along Liyue's coastline report catches so abundant that sharing becomes necessity rather than choice, their nets bringing up varieties of sea life that seem to have migrated from waters beyond the maps. The fishermen speak in hushed voices of songs they hear beneath the waves, harmonies that guide their boats toward schools of fish, while warning them away from storms that approach from directions not marked on any compass. In Mondstadt's vineyards, the grapes ripen with flavors that carry memories of soil and sunshine from seasons that extend back through generations, each vintage expressing not just the current year's weather, but the accumulated love of every hand that has tended these vines since they were first planted. The wine produced from these grapes creates connections between those who share it, allowing understanding to flow between hearts that speak different languages but recognize common hopes. The craftsmen who work in forges throughout Inazuma discover that metal responds to intention as much as technique, their hammers shaping not just physical properties, but spiritual qualities that make tools and weapons serve their users more effectively. Swords forged with genuine desire to protect others seem to guide their wielders' hands toward actions that preserve life rather than taking it, while plows made with love for the earth help crops grow stronger and more nourishing. Sumeru's libraries expand beyond their physical walls, as knowledge begins to flow directly between minds that approach learning with genuine curiosity rather than desire for personal advantage. Scholars find themselves understanding concepts they have never studied, their consciousness connecting to networks of wisdom that span multiple realities while remaining grounded in practical applications that serve their immediate communities. The theatres of Fontaine showcase performances that blur the line between entertainment and spiritual experience. Actors discovering that their portrayals of characters create temporary connections to the consciousness they represent. Audiences leave these performances with expanded understanding of perspectives that differ from their own, empathy that translates into actions serving justice in their daily lives. Natlan's warriors gather around flames that burn with colors unknown to ordinary fire, their training focusing on techniques that channel passion into protection rather than mere destruction. The ancient names they bear begin to resonate with meanings that transcend their historical significance, becoming bridges to wisdom that helps them serve as guardians of growth rather than simply defenders of territory. Even in Snezhnaya's harsh landscape, warmth spreads through communities as the Tsaritsa's transformation allows her people to discover strength that comes from supporting each other rather than simply enduring hardship in isolation. The ice that once symbolized emotional distance becomes medium for preserving memories that connect generations, creating continuity that honors the past while embracing change. The roads between nations carry travelers whose journeys serve purposes beyond simple commerce or tourism, their movement creating networks of connection that facilitate exchange of ideas, techniques, and perspectives that enrich every community they visit. Merchants find that goods crafted with genuine care for their eventual users seem to find their way to those who need them most, while pilgrims discover that their spiritual quests lead them to exactly the guidance they require for their next stage of growth. The monsters that once threatened isolated communities transform into creatures that test courage and cooperation, rather than simply endangering lives. Their challenges, creating opportunities for people to discover capabilities they never knew they possessed, while fostering bonds between those who face difficulties together. The rewards for overcoming these trials benefit entire regions rather than individual adventurers, creating incentives for actions that serve collective well-being. The weather patterns throughout Teyvat begin to respond to the emotional climate of the communities they touch, storms clearing when people work together to solve problems, while gentle rains fall when celebrations express gratitude for abundance received. This connection between human consciousness and natural forces creates feedback loops that encourage behavior, serving harmony rather than conflict. The ancient ruins scattered across all 7 nations reveal additional chambers and passages that had remained hidden until now, their secrets becoming accessible to those who approach with understanding that knowledge exists to serve wisdom rather than power. The puzzles that guard these treasures require cooperation between multiple people with different skills, ensuring that discoveries benefit communities rather than individuals. The vision bearers find their abilities evolving in directions that reflect their commitment to serving others, elemental powers becoming more responsive and versatile when used for protection and creation, rather than conquest and destruction. Some discover that their abilities extend beyond their original element, allowing them to channel whatever form of power their current situation requires most. The Archons continue to walk among their people, but their presence feels more like beloved teachers than distant rulers, their wisdom available to anyone who approaches with genuine questions, while their authority expresses itself through inspiration rather than command. Their guidance helps communities solve problems through understanding rather than force, creating solutions that address root causes rather than merely managing symptoms. The Fatui agents who once operated in shadows now work openly as coordinators for mutual aid between regions, their skills in infiltration and intelligence gathering serving to identify communities that need assistance, while their networks facilitate rapid response to crises that affect multiple areas simultaneously. Their loyalty has shifted from serving a distant sovereign to protecting vulnerable people wherever they are found. The domains that dot the landscape evolve into gathering places where communities can come together to address challenges that require collective effort. Their rewards taking the form of insights and capabilities that benefit everyone who participates. The trials they offer teach cooperation and creative problem-solving rather than individual combat prowess, fostering skills that serve peaceful purposes. The Adventure Guild expands its mission to include exploration of the spaces between realities, helping refugees from cosmic oppression find sanctuary while learning about different approaches to universal challenges that have been attempted in other worlds. Their experience in adapting to unusual circumstances proves invaluable for facilitating integration between beings whose home realities operate according to different rules. The festivals that mark seasonal changes become celebrations of the connections that unite all conscious beings, their rituals acknowledging that individual well-being depends on the health of the entire network of relationships that support existence. The joy expressed during these gatherings creates resonances that extend across dimensional boundaries, inspiring hope in realms where similar transformations have not yet occurred. The children who play in gardens and courtyards throughout Teyvat develop games that teach principles of cooperation and creative problem-solving, their activities preparing them for futures where success measures contribution to collective flourishing rather than individual achievement. Their laughter becomes prophecy of times when conflict serves growth rather than simply determining winners and losers. The elderly who gather in community spaces share stories that connect past wisdom to present needs, their memories becoming resources that help younger generations understand how current opportunities emerged from previous generations' struggles and sacrifices. Their experience guides decisions that honor tradition while embracing innovation. The artists who create beauty in all its forms discover that their work carries emotional and spiritual nourishment as well as aesthetic pleasure. Paintings and sculptures and musical compositions becoming sources of healing that address wounds conventional medicine cannot touch. Their creativity serves community well-being while expressing individual vision and talent. The teachers who guide learning in schools and workshops throughout the 7 nations find their students developing capabilities that exceed anything traditional curricula could provide. Young minds connecting to networks of understanding that span multiple realities while remaining grounded in practical applications that serve their immediate communities. The healers who tend to physical and emotional injuries discover that their abilities extend far beyond conventional medical knowledge, their compassion becoming channel for restoration that addresses spiritual wounds as well as bodily harm. Their care creates ripples of wellness that strengthen entire communities rather than simply treating individual patients. The farmers who tend crops and livestock throughout Teyvat report yields that exceed anything their experience could have predicted. Plants and animals responding to affection and attention in ways that suggest consciousness, extending far beyond what traditional agriculture recognizes. Their harvests nourish both bodies and spirits, creating abundance that encompasses emotional as well as physical satisfaction. The builders who construct homes and public facilities find their creations seeming to adapt to the needs of those who use them, structures that become more beautiful and functional over time rather than simply aging and requiring maintenance. Their work creates spaces that foster community connection while honoring individual privacy and preference. The traveler and their sibling establish new patterns of existence that balance their cosmic nature with the deep connections they have formed to Teyvat and its people, their presence serving as bridge between local concerns and universal principles. Their story inspires others to believe that transformation is possible even when existing systems seem absolutely powerful, that love can overcome any obstacle when properly focused and applied. The wind that carries their voices across dimensional boundaries speaks of possibilities that exist beyond the reach of any authority, that claims power through force rather than wisdom. their example proving that cooperation achieves results that conquest never could. Their journey from separation to reunion becomes template for healing divisions that have persisted across multiple cosmic cycles. And so our gentle journey through the world of Teyvat comes to its peaceful rest, like waves finding their final rhythm upon distant shores. The traveler's story reminds us that even in the darkest separation, hope endures like starlight piercing the deepest night. Through 7 nations and countless trials, we've witnessed how love transcends every boundary, how determination can challenge even cosmic authority, and how the smallest acts of kindness can reshape entire destinies. May your own dreams be filled with the same wonder that guides these eternal wanderers, and may you wake knowing that every ending is simply another beginning waiting to unfold. Sleep well, friends, until we meet again.